The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
What is going on, CaneSport? Izubee Charles this morning, joined by Stephen Wagner, and welcome to Good Morning CaneSport. It is Thursday, October 13th. I would like to thank you all for joining us and starting your day with us on Good Morning CaneSport. Stephen, Miami is set to travel to Cal this upcoming weekend to face off against the Golden Bears for a new face in the conference, but a lot of familiarities between the two sides. As we all know, Cal's led by Justin Wilcox, who had a few matchups against Mario out there during his time at Oregon. Stephen, we have a ton of stuff on the site about the matchup and what the players are saying ahead of the contest. But what are your thoughts about, Miami heading out on the road for that really, really long trip to Cal to face the Golden Bears?
Yeah, man, I feel like this is a game that just has rock fight written all over it. Cal's kind of a weird place to play at to begin with. The Bears don't have, a massive fan base. Their stadium's usually half full. It's oddly cold up there. It smells like weed. It's kind of sleepy. If you're Miami, you've got to travel literally across the entire country. I saw somewhere on social media that the equipment truck for the University of Miami already left and is only halfway there. They've stopped in Texas for a pit stop. That's how far away it is. But with College Game Day being there, it's it just gets even weirder because the only time that I can remember Cal actually being a raucous environment with tons of fans in the stands was back in 2007, whenever Tennessee played there. And I'm pretty sure Deshaun Jackson was on that Cal team. So that's how long ago it was. Deshaun Jackson was still in college. So I have no idea what this game is going to be like, because normally anytime that you'd go to Cal, I'd say, well, be prepared for a rock fight, because as we know, Mario loves to lean on physicality. He wants to beat you up at the line of scrimmage. And Cal is a team that wants to get you into a rock fight because they understand they don't have the personnel to beat you pretty. They don't have the personnel to beat Miami, in a 45-42 shootout. Cal understands, if they're going to win these games against good teams, they're probably going to need to win, 20-14 or something like that. We kind of saw it early in the season whenever they went to Auburn. We saw them basically follow the same game plan whenever they went to Florida State, although Florida State ended up winning that game. But Cal absolutely could have won that game. But with the amount of national attention that's going to be on this game, I'm really not sure what this is going to look like. Miami's getting a taste of Pac-12 after dark. And as we all know, weird shit happens in Pac-12 after dark. UCLA comes back from 40 points down to beat Washington State. That's the kind of stuff that happens in Pac-12 after dark. Arizona upsets ranked Oregon State. Oregon finds itself, in a close game with Idaho. Weird things happen on the West Coast whenever you kick off on West Coast prime time, which is what's going to be happening Saturday. That game's going to be at 7:30 California time. So the Cal fan base is actually going to have a serious chance to, show out in numbers and, actually create a raucous environment. And I truly just have no idea what's going to happen, because I can't imagine Cal as a raucous place to play. But students are actually going to have a chance to, have a genuine game day experience. They're going to be up, tailgating. They're going to show out for College Game Day. I'm willing to bet that, some alums and fans in the San Francisco Bay Area might even be willing to make the trip up for a game whenever they hear that, whenever they hear that Cal's going to be on national television. They hear that Cal is going to get College Game Day. So, man, I've got no idea what's going to happen, and I'm really excited because I have no idea.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. When I saw that ESPN was going to, make that their College Game Day, I was a bit surprised. But, this is a Cal team that easily could be 4-0, like you mentioned. I think they, had a few very good chances to beat Florida State in Tallahassee. And I was very surprised that they didn't beat Florida State in Tallahassee. So going to be excited to see, which kind of Cal team do we see? Do we see the team, that went into Auburn, Jordan Hare, and beat Auburn, and we see the team that, struggled massively against Florida State in Tallahassee. So, like you said, a lot of things can happen, on the West Coast after dark with these late kickoffs. Kickoff is going to be at 7:30 California time and then 10:30 in Florida. Game's going to end around 2 a.m. So super, super late game. But one thing that, I kind of joked about is, hey, Cam Ward made his money during the Pac-12 after dark. So he has a chance to go back out there, play a team that he's familiar with, and, maybe put on, a bit of a more showmanship from him, playing on that West Coast again. But a lot of great intel on that matchup that we have on the site this morning. So make sure to check it out. We have we caught up with guys like Cam Ward, Mish Powell, Francisco Malano, and a bunch of other Miami Hurricanes to talk about that matchup. So make sure to check that out if you already haven't. We also had the Lamar Thomas show last night, which is always a fun time with myself, Gary, Lamar, and a special Miami Hurricanes guest. So if you missed the show, make sure to check that out as well. We're going to move on to recruiting now. A thing that is is going a little bit, under the rug right now in recruiting is that the early national signing period has been moved up to December 4th. Usually we see it kind of the third weekend of December, after the bowl games, when teams are preparing for the bowl games. But now it's been moved up to before conference championship week, which means a lot of things are changing. Usually we see the Miami Hurricanes making those really, really late pushes in the recruiting cycle with flips like guys like Jordan Lyle and a bunch of, just prospects they've been chipping away for a very, very long time in the recruiting process. And now with that national signing period being moved up to, the early parts of December, Steven, I wanted to get your thoughts. We're just, a little over 2 months away from that in October now. December's coming pretty rapidly. Just what are your thoughts on the early signing period being moved up? Does that benefit or does that hurt the Miami Hurricanes?
Yeah, so I think this is actually going to benefit a team like Miami that's going to make it there, that makes a really, really clear effort in high school recruiting. I think this is going to hurt teams like maybe Florida State that dabble in the transfer portal a lot more, because since the signing day is going to be ahead of when the portal window opens, that means that teams are going to need to make clear commitments to their high school prospects or to their high school recruits, and they're going to need to decide much, much early on, and they're going to need to declare their intentions much earlier on. Okay, do we want to go heavy into high school recruiting, or do we want to go heavy into the transfer portal? Because you're not really going to have the opportunity anymore to allow the transfer portal window to open, see who's in there, decide which positions you might want to attack, and then decide which high school kids you're going to, which high school kids you might want to drop from the class, or how big you're going to actually want your high school class to be. This, to me, I think offers a ton of protection for these high school kids, and I think that works out better for schools like Miami that have said from the jump, that we want to be really heavy in high school recruiting, and then we kind of want to supplement that with a few additional pieces from the portal. I think it's going to hurt a team like Florida State that has kind of done it the other way around. They've been much heavier in the portal, and it kind of seems like they've supplemented with high school guys, because as we've seen, each of the last 3 years with Mike Norvell, Florida State has gone to the portal hoping to just find a boatload of starters there. Just go to the portal, get a ton of talent, get it early, get a ton of guys that you think are going to be ready to immediately contribute, and then have high school kids kind of waiting in the wings. And to FSU's credit, they were hitting on a ton of guys. They were getting Trey Benson, they were getting Keon Coleman, they were getting all of these stars that ultimately got FSU to a CFP. But now my question is going to be, okay, so if you're Florida State and you know that you're going to want to go to the portal and you're going to want to get a lot of starters, now that high school signing day is moved up, what are you going to, what commitment are you going to make? Are you going to aggressively say, we'll take our, we'll still sign a very small class and we'll take our chances with who's going to be available in the portal, not knowing who's going to be in the portal? Or are you going to make a much larger investment in high school recruiting and say, okay, now we can supplement our unknowns with the portal? I think it's really, really fascinating. I do think, however, that, kind of the big question mark that a lot of us have is, I say a lot of us, I should say a big question mark that I have is last year, and kind of what Mario Cristobal's always done is he's used that dead period, or he's used that period in December where no games are being played to go all in on high school recruiting, to very, very aggressively fight to get kids on campus, squeeze in those last minute official visits, and, kind of, use the power of, putting pressure on a kid just before signing day and seeing if they're willing to go ahead and either flip or commit, or really just, Miami being able to make their move. So, we saw them do it last year successfully with Jordan Lyle. We saw them do it with Adarius Hayes. They came very, very close to being able to do it with Jeremiah Smith, and Miami no longer has that. They're going to have to move everything up, and they're going to have some of these in-season official visits for guys that they didn't get down over the summer. So I'm really curious to see how Miami is going to handle that, because so far they haven't had they haven't hosted anyone for an in-season official visit. I know that they're talking to some guys about possibly hosting them for in-season officials. I mean, I know they're talking to Kellen Wiley, the 4-star linebacker from Tampa. I know they're talking to TJ Alford, the 4-star Ohio State linebacker commit. They are, and obviously, they're still working on DJ Pickett, who did take an official visit this summer. But I'm really curious to see how Miami is going to handle this, and if Miami is going to be able to be as effective in the days before signing day as they have been in years past.
Yeah, that was, kind of my biggest, not concern, but, thought. Said, hey, Miami's, used those last 2 or 3 weeks in that signing period, as good as anyone else in the country. We always see these jokes, come December, late November on, social media, Twitter, X, whatever it may be, with, Coach Cristobal's breaking out the loafers. He's, going to different recruiting classes, kind of, pulling the Grinch and snagging guys away, late in the process. So with that day being moved up super, super early before conference championship weeks, and like you mentioned, before the portal opens, that's something that, kind of went over my head too. I think that is going to be massive for high school recruiting, because you see a lot of the time, these high school kids kind of get forgotten about. If you don't sign in December, if you're not sure with your, commitment, where do you want to go to school? Once that portal opens, coaches are going to take the guy with more experience, the guy that has played college football at a high level, over a kid in high school that's coming in that's going to take maybe a year, 2, even maybe 3 years to develop. So I think that's a huge, huge, huge plus for the high school kids, and kind of getting them into a situation which works best for them, kind of, having them have a sure thing, rather than, hey, is this school going to take me or a portal guy, or, just taking that stress off the kid that's already dealing with a lot in that recruiting process. But when they did announce this decision, I did speak with a handful of guys, and they were all excited about it, saying, hey, this gets me, it makes it quicker for me to lock in with my program, and little things like that. I haven't heard too many negatives about it, but you never know how something works until it actually starts to happen. So on December 4th, in those last few weeks, leading up to it, late November, really, really excited to see how this all folds. Like you said, Miami has not hosted, any guys on an official visit this fall. And, last year we saw them kind of do it in late November. So we'll want to see how they kind of, handle that schedule, things like that. But definitely going to be very, very intriguing to see come late November, early December. Steven, I want to ask you about Miami's current 2025 commit list. Currently ranks number 13th in the country, with guys like Drake Stubbs, S.J. Alafai-Tuli, Jabari Antoine headlining that group. Quickly, without going into much on this 2025 class, what would you grade the class, right now as it stands on October 3rd?
Yeah, this is definitely a solid B+, A- kind of range class. I think they probably need, maybe 1 or 2 more 4-star commits, or 5-star commits. Either way, 1 or 2 more real blue chip guys, I think, for this to be, it firmly in the A- to A range, instead of, B+ to A-. They're sitting at what? I think 22 commits right now with Malachi Toney's reclassification. But, as we know, they still need some dudes. I think they still need help at edge and on the defensive line, which, of course, we also have to acknowledge Miami can potentially address in the portal. They feel really good about Dante Simpson. They feel really good about Micah New. They're 2 defensive tackle commits. I feel really good about them too. I don't think they're going anywhere unless, something kind of crazy happens, which, never say never, obviously, but I feel pretty good there. They've got Herbert Scroggins, coming off the edge. But it kind of, as far as the rest of the class goes, we've got Hilton Stubbs at safety. We've got we've got Bryce Fitzgerald at the other safety, and we've got Chris Ewald at corner. We've got Jabari Antoine at corner. We've got Tim Merritt, kind of playing all the way around. We've got Amari Wallace, closing out a DB class that I think is really, really, really good. Then at linebacker, you've got guys like Gavin Nix, EJ Marcelin, looking like I think they'll probably end up adding Kellen Wiley too. I'd kind of be surprised if they don't. They're still working on TJ Alford from Ohio State. I think there's a very good chance that they could potentially add him. Especially if and when they're able to get him on campus for that actual official visit after conversations kind of died down earlier this summer. Luke Nickel, 4-star quarterback, obviously the guy who kind of, headlines the class whenever you're looking at it from a ranking standpoint or from a player ranking standpoint. SJ Alafai-Tuli, top 100 interior offensive lineman that, really does play like a 5-star prospect. I think he's going to be awesome for Miami. I think he's going to have a ton of success at the college level. Really, really, really high floor player that I think could potentially get playing time as early. I think he could get sporadic playing time his freshman season. That's how good I really think he is. And really, whenever you see them taking 3-star pieces, I mean, they've only really taken 3-star guys that, they really do feel like are gems. They're not taking dudes just because they need dudes. They're taking guys who they really, really do have high grades and high evaluations on. They're taking, a Max Buchanan, the 3-star offensive lineman out of Seminole. They're taking a TK Mew, who they think is going to be another Inez Cooper type of dude. So really overall, this is a good class, but they still need a few top end additions if they really want to get, to that A-level range. And obviously if they want to get into the top 10.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that one as well. I think this class is kind of sitting at that B+ range, just probably percentage wise, I think like an 88% or 89. You're really, really close to that A-, that A grade, but just a few more things that'll get you over the top and in that top 10 for the 3rd straight year, which I think they'll do come signing day. Obviously, there's a lot of big names still left on that board. I know you touched on guys like DJ Pickett, TJ Alford, who committed elsewhere, even an Elijah Griffin, who, number 1 defensive lineman in that 2025 class. Miami's been flirting with him a lot as of late. He was supposed to be down in Coral Gables for that Ball State game, but things didn't work out. But that's another guy in the mix that we're not, that we're keeping a close eye out on as we continue to get through this recruiting cycle. So a lot of meat left on the bones, and there's several positions that, Miami's still pushing to add some more guys. Like you mentioned, linebacker, Kellen Wiley. But one position group that I really, really do want to talk about is wide receiver. Obviously they have 2 really, really talented wideouts in that class with Malachi Toley and Dalen Upshaw. But those are more of you, slot, crafty guys that are, get things done in the intermediate game. Right now, what I think the class is lacking the most is a big outside wide receiver threat. And there's a few guys still left on the board. Steven, I'm going to throw, a few names out there and just kind of who do you think, I'm going to ask you, who do you think Miami has the best chances with? We'll start Josh Moore, Dallas Wilson, Jamie French, or Tyler Williams. I want to throw Vernell Brown in there too because I know he's still a big-time target for the Canes in that 2025 class. Out of those 5 names, who do you think Miami has the best chance of flipping or landing?
Yeah, definitely Josh Moore. I don't think that Vernell Brown's going to leave Florida. The ties that he has to Florida are so strong. I really do think that he's going to end up being a Gator. I mean, look at it this way. He was totally willing and had no reservations about committing to play for Billy Napier. Billy Napier probably going to get fired this year. Let's be honest. He's probably going to get fired this year. I'm willing to bet that he's probably going to be okay with playing for whichever guy they hire to replace Billy Napier, who obviously is probably going to be better than Billy Napier. But I think that Josh Moore definitely is the guy who's most likely to be flipped. I mean, whenever he committed to Florida, he was really, really clear. I'm leaving my recruitment completely open. He was going to keep visiting other schools. He was going to keep considering other programs. He's going to keep talking with other coaches. He visited Miami 2 days after the Hurricanes beat the crap out of Florida in Gainesville in a game that he actually attended. He's already been saying that, or he's been saying that he's going to get back down to Miami at some point this fall. I think he's probably going to go ahead and visit Miami for the FSU game. Things are looking really, really good on that front. I should at least say I feel really, really good about how things are looking on that front. Dallas Wilson, man, I'm really starting to kind of feel like if Miami's not going to be able to get that traction with Dallas now, I'm a little bit uncertain if they ever will be able to get it. Jamie French, I think he's probably just going to go ahead and end up signing with Texas. And then, like I said, Vernell Brown, I think he's probably a Gator.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on those. I think another name, Tyler Williams, I think that's one that's in the air still, obviously committed to Georgia and things like that. But Miami's been, involved in that recruitment since he was an unranked guy. And, speaking with guys, close to that situation, I think they're going to kind of, stay involved in that to the very end. So another guy to keep on the radar on that wide receiver board. Want to jump to the defensive side of the ball. Obviously, we know Miami has a ton of talent in that secondary class, but they are still looking to add more guys. One guy that was recently on campus, Ben Hanks, was at the most recent Miami game against Virginia Tech. And obviously, we can't talk about secondary flip targets without mentioning DJ Pickett. I think right now those are kind of the two last pieces that Miami's kind of add to this class. Obviously, they've extended the recruiting board, offered a few more defensive backs in the 2025 class, but on the top of that board right now, I think it's DJ Pickett and Ben Hanks. So even just your two quick thoughts on DJ Pickett and Ben Hanks, where Miami stands with those guys as we get closer to the early signing period.
I think Miami has a really legitimate shot with Ben Hanks. I think that the Hurricanes are right freaking there. They're right in the middle of this. And if I'm Florida, I'm a little bit nervous about whether or not I'm going to be able to hold on to Hanks. Oddly enough, someone asked me this on the message, or someone asked me a question about Hanks on the message board the other day, and the kind of the circumstances of his commitment to Florida. Honest to God, I really do think that him committing to Florida earlier in the cycle as opposed to later in the cycle actually ended up working better for Miami, because now Miami knows exactly what they have to do, and they know that this recruitment is not shut down. It allows them more time to claw back into this thing, as opposed to, if he were to commit on December 3rd and Miami has to go all in leading up to his commitment. And then if something unexpected happens, or, there's a development and Miami just kind of falls out of the race, then all of a sudden, there wouldn't really be much that Miami can do. The fact that he committed as early as he does, that gives Miami a lot of time to recover, and they are recovering very, very well. Florida offering the opportunity for both him and his sister to go to school together, for his sister to go play volleyball and for him to go play football. Miami's aware of that right now. They know that is going to be a part of the deal, and that's a part of the conversations that they are having. I think that Miami is going to have a really, really good shot for him come December, especially if Miami keeps winning and Florida kind of, continues to crumble. I think Miami is a straight up threat to Florida. And if I'm a Florida fan right now, I'm a little bit uneasy because I don't know if I'll be able to hold on to Ben Hanks with Miami, kind of making this big resurgence.
Yeah, 2 months until, like I said, the early signing period, and things are going to start heating up for sure on the recruiting show. We all know Coach Cristobal likes to make those big splashes, they like to call, landing those big whales, when it comes to, his recruiting classes. And Miami's looking to push for another top 10 class, which would be the third under Mario Cristobal, potentially a top 5 class, which would be, a great acquisition for the program as they continue to add a lot of talent to this team, as they continue to, try to build and become a powerhouse like they used to be before. And, like we all know, recruiting is going to be a vital part of that for the Canes. Spoke about, a handful of top targets, but, some other guys I want to touch on, before we wrap things up today. Guys like Elijah Griffin that I mentioned, Darian Norris, Solomon Thomas. Steven, before we wrap up, I actually want to get your thoughts on him too. A lot of people are saying on the message board, hey, man, when's Miami going to start dipping into that Florida State class? And when I look at that class, one of the few guys I really think Miami should chase is Solomon Thomas. Just what are your quick thoughts on that and his recruitment with Miami?
Yeah, Miami, they're never really going to shut the door on a prospect like that, they're always going to make sure that they keep in touch. And he is a recruit that Cristobal and Mirabal really, really did love. His size, his athleticism, just, how high his floor and his ceiling are. He is pretty much a 5-star offensive lineman, I think, in really all aspects. I'm pretty sure he's a 5-star on the On3 consensus, or on the On3 industry ranking. I don't know if he's a 5-star in the On300, but still, he's a top 50 recruit. I mean, this is a bona fide stud. I think Miami already has a very good offensive line class, but I think adding a guy like Thomas would really take this O-line class from good to great, kind of the same way that adding DJ Pickett would take the DB class from good to great. And, adding Ben Hanks along with that, obviously, in the secondary. But Miami's going to keep trying to plug away at Solomon Thomas. They're going to keep trying to see if they're going to be able to get him down to campus. It would not stun me at all if we saw him on campus at some point this fall. I just have no idea when. But I would definitely be surprised if we don't maybe feel a little bit of pressure from Miami at some point for Thomas.
Yeah, a ton of meat left on the bone in the 2025 class. And like I mentioned, signing day is rapidly approaching. We'll be here before you know it. So stay tuned with CaneSport as we have you covered with all your recruiting news and team news as well. That's all that we have for this episode of Good Morning CaneSport. For Stephen Wagner, I'm Izubee Charles. Thank you all for starting your day with us. Have a great rest of your day as well.